Hello. Hello. It is Monday. I've had a little bit of a break. Today is the 28th of February and I am reading out of Lydia. It's the follow-on story from Bliss After Life. I started Bliss After Life in 2006 and finished it in 2017. I didn't write regularly. It was a sort of spur of the moment when I was writing over the years, and then I decided to finish Bliss After Life, which is the story about Bliss who passes away after her 95th birthday. Not at the birthday, after her birthday. And we follow her into the afterlife, and we follow her family. And this story, Lydia, started in 2017, and it is the reincarnation of somebody called Alexei, and the new incarnation was born in March 2012, is Lydia. And so I'm now at chapter 65 of Lydia, and the chapter is entitled Bliss and JJ. Bliss had been waiting for little Joseph at his special place. Hello, little Joseph, how are you and Mummy feeling? All is well, Bliss. It's getting tighter. I'm almost ready, but I need more time to grow my density. I'm mostly sleeping. Turning around, time is over. Do you know that you have a new name? No, what name? Well, Joseph stays, but we add Jacob. A little confusion in your family made you a JJ. Jacob, Joseph. They were both laughing. You go along, JJ. You have more growing to do. Mummy is getting ready for Christmas, and this time you are there, keeping Mummy company. She will be eating a lot because he was waving at her. Bliss, he was waving at her. He had to go back. They were smiling. Bliss decided to connect with Milton. His mummy was snoozing on her drive home from seeing his room, and he was back with Lydia tonight. Melanie was finishing Milton's room, snoozing in the car with Pete. She saw herself preparing his cot. His room was right next to their bedroom. Mummy wanted a sliding door which gave him more room. The window went all the way to the floor, and he could look out over the trees. He could watch the sky, she says, and the birds. That made him feel like taking off and flying over the trees. Melanie opened her eyes. She had felt a kick, which made her gasp. What's up? Pete had been dreaming himself of JJ. Driving had a soothing effect on him. It was dark and quiet. Melanie had been quietly snoring on the passenger seat. It's dark. I felt a big kick. Sorry, startling you, Peter. Where are we? Another 45 minutes or so. Did you communicate with Mio? Pete was always curious. He had been dreaming of finishing the flat conversion. He wanted to be permanently home with Anna next year. He loved living at the refuge. Susan agreed with his plans to change things around, build a new kitchen, etc., to make their abode more private within the house. They couldn't live anywhere nicer for their little one to grow up. With Lydia and little Milton, there will be 3 small ones regularly learning life together. Melanie and Tony will be with them a lot, with their little girl, and Peter was already thinking about discussing having more young members in the house. Susan was spending more time at David's, and she already said she was leaving them free hand, as long as no one expected her to run things and coordinate. She would be happy for Anna to look into what could be done with the rooms. Home education had come up several times, and Tony was not sure the building trade was a permanent change of career for him. Peter was smiling. Tony was good with his hands, and converting their own place gave inspiration, but he could see Tony easier as a teacher than a builder. But what he had learned over this last year, nobody could take away from him. Bliss and Milton were smiling at each other. Things were going well, and she sent him back to finish growing his body. Melanie had fallen back to sleep, and Pete switched the radio on. Some smooth, quiet jazz. He had dreaming to do. Chapter 66. Lene visits the cottage. Aunty Lene visits at David's was a great success. Silvana and her formed an immediate bond. She reminded her of her late daughter. She had exclaimed this the moment Steve and her walked into the door. It set the whole weekend off to an emotional and invigorating start. Eva had decided on the spur of the moment to come along too, and she fit right into the swing of the mood. David had been playing his guitar, and with the fire roaring and Christmas decorations already up, they had a thoroughly merry time. Susan loved to hear stories of David's childhood, and she'd sat in the kitchen with Lene for some time. When the food arrived, they all sat at the table, and Lene was telling them how her and Eva had the most marvelous cruise. They had spent much time with a couple, and one of the reasons was that they were tarot readers who were part of the package for the voyages, and with Lene's interest in that, they had 10 extraordinary days. David was just recounting the reading his auntie had given him since he returned to England, and they were marvelling at the power of the world unseen. They had ordered a mixed takeaway. Everybody was tucking in whilst Lene was telling them about the couple on board who had given readings to all who were interested. They were Canadian, and she was a beautiful, raven-haired, vivacious woman in her late 50s, and her husband was a quiet but very handsome fellow, nearer his 60s, and his mother had been from India. Lene could not get over the fact that he also had very blue eyes. When Steve came with Silvana, she almost had a funny turn. Everybody was riveted. Anyway, she was using very traditional tarot cards, a very old set. She had a way with reading them that I've never seen. I'm such an amateur. Everybody was laughing. She also had a set of her own tarot card designs, and she had given me one as a present. She was grappling in her handbag and came out with a small deck of a beautiful set of tarot cards and opened the box. They have only just come out. She was saying she was mainly using her old deck, and her own deck will come into its own, as she put it. They were very busy. In fact, she said that after the Rhine trip, they would take a month holiday, or even more. I do not think they have money problems. Everyone was laughing. To be honest, I have not had a chance to use these at all. My usual psychic tarot has served me well over the years. You know that I never did professionally anything anyway. But I love the tarot, and Jenny gave me a much deeper insight. Her husband Ravi was generally quiet, but would occasionally add something. They would always look at each other during the reading. They were a pleasure to watch. Lene looked at Eva, her friend, because they had often observed people sitting in the little window area which had been segregated away for them to have their sessions. They had a list and did 6 couples or people a day. They did 3 cruises a year, and the rest of the time they lived in the mountains of Canada with their animals and a large household of relatives and helpers. They ran a little wellness centre, but their daughter and son had largely taken it over, and the couple enjoyed travelling, which they never had the chance to do when they were younger. Eva said she could have easily fallen in love with Ravi. He reminded her of her George, which had her and Lene well up again, and that was a regular occurrence. The tears turned to laughter. Anyway, after we've eaten, shall we do a reading? Lene took another portion of food and looked around the table. Oh, yes. David thought about the list immediately. He had told Lene a little about it, and she had told Eva, her friend. Silvana and Steve talked about it a lot, and it had almost become a part of their life. Their perspective had changed. Susan, let's look at the list and find our questions. Susan had it folded in her handbag. Let's finish eating first and clear the table. Then we gather and follow the instructions. Lene continued recounting events of their trip, and Eva was feeling blessed that she had the insight to change her plans. Being with Lene always promised a good time, and tonight felt like an evening that she used to have with George and friends. Susan got up to change the music, and everybody enjoyed their food. The reading, Tarot of the Mystic Spiral. They were all feeling quite stuffed, but all sat down in anticipation of the tarot reading. Lene was explaining that much is interpretation, and she had got used to reading with her own deck, which was quite easy, and she rarely looked into politics or anything of that nature. Jenny and Ravi had been amazing on that trip, and they had done public readings twice to questions in the evening, on 2 evenings. Eva and Lene had asked many questions, and the couple were never fazed and let the cards speak, interpreting whilst drawing them. Lene took out the cards and was explaining that she would lay a 5-card spread, almost like a shape of a cross, with the first one being at the bottom. The instructions advised that number 1 was the knot and deals. Number 1 was the winged wand, and it showed the roots of the problem, the past and the causes of the present. Number 2 was the knot and deals with the current issue and its potential development. Number 3 was the black snake, and it showed adverse conditions and blocks. And number 4 was the white snake, which showed favorable conditions. Number 5 was the helmet of Hermes and showed the summary. So how do we pose the question to get a drift of the answer? Susan was looking around while Lene was shuffling the cards and laid the 5 piles as instructed onto the table. Well, let me see, David, you said number 1 and number 4 was causing problems? David was laughing, and so was Susan. Yes, Chris said he would take these, and we have been looking into it as well, because with Susan's refuge and their various attempts to get funds, etc., we tried to see beyond the obvious. So maybe we can just say, what is the purpose or aim or whatever with regard to the World Health Organization and the United Nations? Because we look at the words health and united, sounds good, but somehow why is it so difficult to answer these questions? Chris is really grappling with it, but the BBC and his papers always make out that they are good guys. Oh well, we are 6 of us here and we can chew it over. Here goes, card number 1. Number 1 was the winged wand, and it showed the root of the problem. It showed the devil, a major arcana card, and the picture was extremely graphic. They handed the card around and everybody raised their eyebrow. Lene took her glasses and read, Facilis descensi averni. The descent to the underworld is easy. The androgen displays the chains with which he binds the slave of passion. The upside-down basilic and the pentacle indicate the profound abyss. The creative and chaos music. The creative and chaotic music of Pan accompanies the lord of the chthonic forces. Chthonic forces with horns and a spiral tail. It was a somewhat shocking picture of a creature with breasts and a penis and a head of a horned animal with pan flutes in the one hand and chains in the other. Everyone was stunned. Lene turned the second card. Number 2 was the knot and dealt with current issues and its potential development. It showed the 4 of swords. Swords depict the mind, or Geist, as Susan pointed out. The warrior honors the clan and the spiral intertwined on the cross, following a cruel battle. He refuses to act after a certain experience. The card showed a man with a beard kneeling in front of a stone cross, with his sword in his hand and his head down. Behind him is a huge stone with spirals carved into it. Everybody looked at each other. Number 3, Savannah couldn't wait. Number 3 was the black snake, and it showed adverse conditions and blocks. It showed the 6 of Pentacles, Pentacles depicting matter. Johann Georg Gichtel receives coins from the natural man, illustrating the spirals on energy centers. Generosity produces wealth and freedom from dark selfishness. The picture was showing Gichtel on his knees with hands, getting coins from a man in only a loincloth. The drawing on the cards were amazing. Everybody pondered. Come on, let's have the 4th card. Eva couldn't wait to see what the favorable aspect would be. The white snake, she exclaimed, and they all laughed as her accent was perfect for the tarot. The white snake. Another major arcana. 8. Justice. Eva almost shouted it. Now look at that, she muttered something Russian under her breath. The picture showed a beautiful, young, strong man with wings and a pair of balanced scales in his left hand and a small sword on the other. Behind him, a magnificent city. Lene took her glasses. Justice franga non flecta I will break, but I will not bend. The Archangel Michael stands as rigid as the rock of the mountain bearing his name. He weighs with his scales and wields with his sword. With no hesitation, the spiral on the armor indicates certainty, perfection, and faith in the absolute law. Oh my God, what does it mean? Let's have card number 5. The 5 was the helmet of Hermes and showed the summary. Eva was getting very dramatic and Lene quickly turned the last card. The wheel, another major arcana. Lene was shaking her head and took her glasses to read the little tiny booklet, which had all explanations in 4 languages. She loved that. The world lucidus ordo, clear and transparent order. In the cosmos, every element is connected and nothing moves randomly. The symbols of the apocalypse move around the world, manifesting clockwise and counterclockwise vortices, creating total organicity. It showed a beautiful picture of a wheel with a yin-yang symbol in the center. A dove was flying into a yellow part of the card. Lene, these are so wonderful. Eva took the rest of the deck and looked through them. She had never seen the like. David put his glasses on and was looking again at all the 5 cards and their relation to the question of WHO and UN represented. Lene leaned back on her chair and rubbed her eyes. Do I need to spell it out, or do we get the drift of what is being shown here? I have to admit that I'm amazed. To be honest, I would love a chat with Jenny and Ravi about this. They are still traveling, and we promised each other to stay in touch. They love England, and we were trying to convince them to come here before they go back to where they came from. Everybody laughed, and Silvana got up to make tea. Everyone wanted a drink, and they decided to sit in the conservatory and pick the cards apart a little bit. Lene fetched her mobile. She decided to send Jenny a message. She had an idea they might still be in Germany. Jenny had relatives there, which she saw last as a child, and although they had not spoken for 3 weeks, Lene somehow knew that it would be okay. She gave a brief description of her reason to message and asked if there was any chance that they'd take a detour and come to visit England. She received an almost immediate response. Oh my God, OMG, coming to London 26th of December. Suddenly Lene's mobile was ringing. Jenny was laughing and they were just laughing into their phone. Lene, I was going to message you the last 3 days. Ravi has relatives in England that he has never met. Long story short, there is a family wedding in Leicester on the 28th of December. He decided spontaneously to agree to come. His sister's son and family have lived in England for years, but he has never seen them. His sister passed away, but her children are alive, and imagine he never met them. Anyway, we would love to visit you early January, or even earlier. I have no idea of the geography, and Ravi doesn't either. Now, you message me. This is mad. Tell me more. Where are you? And where is London Heathrow in relation to that? They were both laughing. Canada was so vast. Well, how about we organize to pick you up at Heathrow on the 26th? We can decide where we will take you. London is 45 minutes away, and where I live, a little further. But let me chat with the others here. Susan, I told you about her. She has a very large house in London, and I think that would be a good place to stay. We figure out how you get to Leicester for the wedding in good time. Lene's heart was beating. This was exciting. What is your time of arrival here? Oh, geez, it's 6 a.m. in the morning. No, that's great. There will be no traffic. And I know there will be no problem. I suspect there will be many at the refuge anyway for that whole Christmas week. Refuge? Jenny thought she heard wrong. Lene was laughing so hard. Eva came into the kitchen to eavesdrop. It's not a refuge anymore, Jenny. It's a place Susan used to run. I'm sure it came up in conversation. A large house in southwest London. It's no longer a typical refuge, but we always refer to it as that. Eva has just come. Tell her. Jenny repeated what she said to Lene, and Eva clapped her hands. How absolutely marvelous. Lene and her usually spent the holiday season together, and she loved the idea of seeing the couple on Boxing Day. What fun. They had so much space in London. Lene, tell me, why did you message me tonight again? You were using my DAC? How wonderful. What do you think about it? Jenny, it's amazing, and yes, I would love to talk to you about it. We shall interpret it ourselves now, but I shall send you the details. I bet you know these cards inside out. Best I do that in peace. Lots of love, and we all look forward to meeting you both. I speak to you well before Christmas, yeah? Of course. And likewise, thank you. I am now intrigued. Lene put her phone away and looked at her friend. Both were smiling. I think there is some fun ahead. Eva put her arm around Lene, and they walked together into the conservatory, where a lively discussion about the card was still going on. Both were happy to introduce their new friends to everybody, and what better time than the Christmas holidays, ending 2012 and starting 2013. So, chapter 67 is about Melanie, and then I'm going to read that a little bit later. Have a lovely Monday morning. Bye.